Welcome to another episode of The Breakdown. Alberta politics, we talk about it a lot on the show, and we're pretty dramatic over here in Alberta. So much so that maybe some other provinces are getting in on the fun. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to talk about the dreaded words of social media. We're going to talk about TikTok with somebody who's apparently quite an expert in these things. We're excited today to be joined all the way from Experience Regina, Saskatchewan. Steve Boots. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
So glad to be here. So glad to be repping my hometown that is currently going through a world-class PR catastrophe. So thanks for that.
Which one are we talking about, Calgary or Regina?
I mean, there's plenty to go around right now, it seems.
It's true. So before we get too much into the political advocacy, the TikTok, the fact that the heat from Alberta burning is so hot that it's passing over into Saskatchewan. Who is Steve Boots? Can you give us a little bit of a backstory on who you are?
Sure. I'm a teacher. I was born in Calgary. I realized almost immediately it wasn't the place for me and moved away when I was about 2. It was a tough conversation with the parents, but we made the tough decision together. I lived in Montreal for a little bit and then wound up in Regina and grew up there from the time I was about 5. Went to university in Regina, and I was one of those people who I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. So I lived in university for altogether too long. And I did an English lit and film degree with a minor in philosophy, which probably has something to do with how I wound up as I am. And then I did secondary education in English and social studies. So again, like the path sort of laid itself out. And then I wound up as a teacher. I taught overseas for a little while. I've taught in Saskatchewan for 15 years now. And been busy with the TikTok for just a little over a year now, and up to 125,000 followers or so. So modestly successful. I don't know what kind of barometer I have for that.
Well, you're a name that definitely keeps coming up in Alberta politics, and I know that it's not an uncommon thing that there will be a conversation that goes on in the Alberta politics realm, and somebody will say, "Hey," and then they'll tag you. Did you see this yet?
Oh, it's so funny, I'll say this to anybody listening. If I missed you tagging me in something, it's because I get tagged in a bazillion things and I just cannot keep up with it. I try. I swear I do.
So, let's talk about the political advocacy piece.
Yeah.
You escaped Alberta. You're almost like a reverse Jason Kenney. You both have the beard, because he claims that he was a refugee from Saskatchewan, and you arguably could claim the reverse.
Because I do still like Calgary. Just they refused to give me a white cowboy hat before I turned 2, and so couldn't put up with it.
It's a company you keep kind of thing though, because some of the we're handing those out to these days. It's not
true. Very true. Yeah, the bar got dropped for sure.
A little bit. So how did you get into the political advocacy piece? A lot of people look at politics and they go, "Oh man, I don't want to talk about that. People are going to hate me and throw eggs at my office." How did you get into it?
So it's a funny thing. Like my parents are not tremendously political at all. Like they were in like the business world. So like you saw politicians at things because they're just always at things, especially like Regina's not that big, right? And so there was some of that. So I was sort of tangentially aware, but really, honestly, it's the funniest thing. I can pinpoint it. When I was about 12, we had one of these, I'm dating myself again. We had one of those TVs that was like a little rectangle, like a 3-inch television, the kind that went under the kitchen cabinet. And I feel like viewers of a certain age will know what these are. Some people will have no clue, but it was like the size of an iPhone. And so my parents got a new TV for the kitchen. And so they raffled this off to the kids and I won it. And it didn't have cable. So it only got CTV, and I think it only got CTV. And so I would every night stay up way past my bedtime and watch Lloyd Robertson do the news. and then Jon Stewart make fun of it. And so I get asked all the time, like, do you want to be a politician? It's like, no, I never aspired to be the politicians. I aspired to be the Jon Stewart and the Stephen Colbert, the guy making fun of the politicians. And so that was one part of it. That was the thing that like piqued my interest. But then there was also the fact that like I was working as a teacher for years and years and years, and I wasn't super politically involved or super politically interested, but I saw it getting worse every year. And I just couldn't shut up about it anymore. And so my entrance into being public with my political views, my political advocacy, was through frustration with education. And since then, I have a partner who's a nurse. And so my interest wandered over to healthcare too, or not wandered over, but expanded over to healthcare too, because I now have a window into what they experience too. And it's just continued to grow from there.
Okay. The next obvious question has to be thank you for just making me feel old, because if you were watching Jon Stewart when you were 12, ouch. I was not 12 when I got into the Daily Show at all. But so you live in Saskatchewan, you've been there for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And I know that and I'll steal a line from Mr. Stewart here, that the turd mines are rich here in Alberta. But you do quite a bit of Alberta-based content. Why is that?
I think there's a lot of reasons. I think one of the big ones is that Saskatchewan and Alberta are very politically interconnected. Like, I think more than any other two provinces, I don't know, I can't speak for out east too specifically, like Quebec, Ontario, whatever, but I think they're as closely politically and socially and economically intertwined as any two places could be. There's a lot of cultural overlap, but there's also a lot of economic overlap. The oil industry has really sort of deep ties to both sides, and a lot, like, where goes Alberta, so goes Saskatchewan in so many cases. Like Alberta really dug hard into carbon capture and sequestration, and Saskatchewan was not far behind. Alberta brought out the Alberta Sovereignty Act, Saskatchewan right there with Saskatchewan first. And so in my mind, it's such an important barometer for what's going on in Saskatchewan too. But there's another element of this, which is the lack of media coverage in Saskatchewan. Like, there's just not as many stories coming out of Saskatchewan because there's just not enough journalists. There's not enough newsrooms, and the newsrooms that are here are shrinking or closing. Like, our two major newspapers, the Leader Post and the Star Phoenix, they no longer have physical offices. They're entirely remote.
Do they have a post office box?
I assume, but like, they're just gone. Like, the Star Phoenix shuttered it. They're printed in a shop in Estevan and shipped into the cities every morning. Like, there's just nothing. And so it would be hard to build a channel. It would be hard to build that just focusing entirely on Saskatchewan content, but also Alberta content just interests me. I've got family here. I've got friends here. I've got, a lot of people I care about, and the social issues here I'm familiar enough with. And I talk about Ontario a fair bit too for the same reason. I'm familiar enough with them that I'm able to feel like I'm up to date, feel like I know what's going on. I have the general lay of the land that I feel like I can weigh in, if that makes sense. Like, I don't talk about Quebec because I look at Quebec and I'm like, that is such a complicated thing. And there are so many factors that I don't understand that I stay out of it.
I find that the Quebec names, the Francophone names, can be very difficult to pronounce. It's just a thing that I have trouble navigating because I'm Anglophone as Anglophone gets.
Just think of your favorite toy, Francois Lego.
There you go.
Problem solved.
Now, that's like the worst Christmas gift Lego set that anyone
can you imagine? What do you get me? Francois Lego.
I wanted Star Wars, but I got Francois.
Amazing.
So I want to talk about your choice of platform a little bit, because you do very, very well on the TikTok side. I don't know. Like, do you have a big Facebook footprint? Is that something that is even worth it? Because let me tell you, man, some of the stuff that we see on the Facebook, we have a Facebook page. There's some folks.
Facebook has gone so far. Like, Facebook was always kind of wacky. Facebook now has gone so far off the rails. Like, what on earth is even going on over there? If you want like the adventure of a lifetime, go read the comments on literally anything Scott Moe posts on Facebook. It is like visiting an alien universe. So it's funny because I had this like weird journey through different social media. So like I do have a personal Facebook page, but it's entirely just like a birthday machine right now. So like don't try to follow me on there. You're not gonna, there's nothing. But I did sort of start on there at one point where I think it was in the previous one of the earlier rounds of teacher bargaining. I started posting sort of longer, more research posts about education, and they started to get some momentum. They started to spread around a little bit. And it's funny because I got sort of into that, and then I got a little disillusioned with it. It didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And I vividly remember, not this past summer, but 2 summers ago, sitting in my house and thinking to myself, I'm just going to give up on the politics. I'm just going to lay low. I'm just going to sit down and shut up and just get through the day, whatever. And about 2 months later, I downloaded Twitter again. And I got frustrated again because COVID was starting to emerge, and it was pretty clear that stuff was coming and things weren't going to go great. And I very quickly built a following on Twitter of a couple thousand folks. And so I started to think maybe I've got something here, and I started to write longer threads. And the TikTok thing happened really in the most unexpected way you could imagine. I was sitting in this very desk, which at that point did not have all this cool stuff on it. And I was working on report cards. And I was so sick of working on report cards. And I was like, I need to distract myself. What's it going to be? And I decided to record a TikTok. And I recorded one that was intentionally about a boring topic because I just wanted to play with the tool. I was like, I'm just going to do something that won't be that big. I just want to see how I like the tool, how it works, how I like the flow of this. And it was about the resignation of the head of the Sask Health Authority, Scott Livingston, which is like a pretty niche story, right? Like, that's not going to blow up. 70,000 views in like a day. And
was the cat
in the video? Was that what triggered it off? Or
no, I don't know. It was literally like, this guy resigned. We don't know why. And go back and watch it. It is slow, like agonizingly slow. I had no idea what I was doing. And like, my voice is like this because I'm so unsure of myself. Like, it was terrible. And it did 70K, and I had 2,400 followers in a day. And I was like, oh, I guess this is a thing I do now. And like, it has literally been full speed ahead since then. And like, I settled into a style fairly quickly. I started to get a sense of what I liked fairly quickly. And after that, it's been almost like just play as much as anything. Like, especially the lighter videos.
You do include a fair amount of humor in your videos as well.
On occasion.
A little bit of sarcasm from time to time.
Just a smidge.
So we have tried to do the funny TikTok over here, and it just hasn't. We haven't landed it, and so we've just kind of said, okay, well, we're just going to post the content and occasionally include the hashtag WEF to make all the very excited people come by and leave very kind comments. So that's kind of our approach. But like, walk through, what is your approach? What is your process for making one of these videos?
Okay. So it depends a lot on the nature of the video. So I'll do a number of videos a day, somewhere between like 5, there was a period of time I burnt myself out a little bit, but I was doing like 9 to 12 videos a day, which was like too much. And so these days I'm right around like 6 to 9 videos a day. And so what I'll usually do is I'll cover about 3, maybe 4 newsy topics, and 3 or 4 that I'll like respond to comments or do something silly. Or in a lot of cases, I'll use like a comment or a question as a jumping off point to talk about a larger topic. So the newsy ones, generally what I'll do is I'll just like educate myself about that topic. I'll read a couple of different articles about the same topic. I'll try to dig a little bit deeper, find out what I know. I'll read other people's takes on the topic. I'll inform myself what people are saying about it and sort of like not rip off opinions, but at least get a sense of like what different perspectives about this topic look like before I sort of form my own. I don't like it's never it. Here's the thing that I actually respect you for is it's always scary to take the first take at something. Right? Like it's scary to be the first one to make a take on something. And I've stepped on it before. And so you seem to not be afraid of taking the first take on things. But like I like that, man. Somebody's got it. And the news is often terrified to take first takes on things.
Once you've been canceled a half dozen times and you still exist, you start to realize that the risks of like we're okay if people don't like us. So
well, and there's some element of that, but there's also like I don't know. It's always a tricky thing, right? Because like I've been wrong before, and I'll own that a gazillion %. Like I've posted takes, and after the fact, been like, "Oh, that was not a great take." And like, there's 90% of people are willing to be like, "Okay, yeah, they had not a great take, but he walked it back and he acknowledged why it wasn't a great take." Like it seems like he is. And then there's the 10% who are like, "No, I will hate him forever." So I wonder if there's any appeal in that sort of group. I don't know. What do you do, right?
I mean, I just had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a drag performer named Shane On You, and his philosophy is so good in that he doesn't try to engage with or educate people who don't want to be engaged with or educated. And I think that's a big part of it, because you will get at least we do, the shit posters who just want to come and be like, yeah, but Trudeau did blackface one time. And it's like,
oh my God, why is that the disqualify button on everything? Like, I'm not going to sit here and defend it for a second. It was awful. It's a bad thing to do. But like, it's the only thing that a significant segment of people want to talk about. And it's like, and they make it like display photos and stuff. And it's like, why on earth are you doing this?
I've never been able to like, to me, and I talked about this on one of our shows just recently. The difference is, it's like if a dog's crapping on your floor. If the dog's crapping on your floor actively, that's a problem that you should deal with right away. But if your response to the dog crapping on your floor is, well, yeah, but like 20 years ago, there was this other dog and he crapped on this other floor, and why aren't we talking about that? Well, because it's not actively happening. I mean, it's really easy for me to go, I don't think that it's good when dogs crap on floors, period.
No. And that's it. And like, I think there's a lot of people who struggle to hold sort of two things at the same time. Like Justin Trudeau can be a not perfect person, and he's far from perfect. And Danielle Smith can make a wrong decision. Those two things can happen at the same time. It really knocks people's socks up.
It does. To your point, I think it's, and I'm going to use this as a bit of a clumsy seg. I think a big part of it is being able to admit when and own when maybe a take isn't so great. Maybe, oh, that wasn't the best news source to use, and we got that wrong. Sorry about that. It would be nice if premiers did that too.
Wouldn't it just?
But
and like, the worst part of that is that segue. If this weren't specifically an Alberta thing, that wouldn't narrow it down at all.
No.
like if this weren't specifically Alberta, I would need far more information to know which premier you were talking about.
I was talking about Danielle Smith.
No.
She did her radio show. I don't know if you heard this today. She just did her radio show today, and she
Wasn't
changed.
she denouncing?
What's that?
I hear she was denouncing all over the place.
Well, she said that Archer's his views are horrible just because she said that she followed his advocacy for years. That doesn't mean that she approved it. But advocacy is a fun word to use, I guess, when you're talking endorsement. But her new thing is, I was just talking to another political leader.
Yeah, and it's such a weird pivot because she's never referred to him as a political leader or acknowledged him as a political leader at all.
Or spoken to a lot of the other political leaders.
I mean, also a factor.
I haven't seen a photo op with her and Notley. I haven't seen a photo op with her and
right, because she bailed on the Notley portrait reveal, didn't she?
She sent a friend. She was busy.
Busy. Doing?
Well,
was it ever specified?
This is another one of those like, oh, that's kind of gross, Danny. She made a brief appearance at a meeting involving some First Nations folks and then quickly handed the meeting off. But her public statement was, I had to meet with some First Nations folks from Alberta, and it's important that we have First Nations relations because I'm Cherokee, don't you know?
It's so transparent, like the grift, right? Like the thing that I've noticed a lot in like online comment sections, in TikToks, is there's a lot of intentional misunderstanding or intentional, like, I am going to ignore specific details of this so it fits what I want it to be.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with the Tylenol thing, or not Tylenol, Perol? Is it Perol, the stuff?
I think that's close. Yeah.
Like there are so many people like saying like, oh yeah, no, it's a great thing to have. Like, why? But they'll double down no matter what, because you're on the team. You got to play for the team. So you intentionally misunderstand just to be on the team.
But I gotta be clear. Both sides do that as well. Like it's
not
100%.
100%.
There's definitely folks on the progressive side who go bend themselves into pretzels.
Oh my god! Like when Jagmeet Singh tweeted the other day about every cent of Galen Weston's money above a certain number should be taxed. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? You want 100% marginal tax rate? Like, and there was so many folks just like doing handsprings in the replies, trying to explain like, oh no, he knows that, he understands that, he just like wants to tax more. Like, what?
I have questions. This is why, see, like Alberta politics is busy enough that the federal realm, we don't pay that much attention to. Like
there's so many noodle scratchers from every party. Like every party is kind of just yikes these days.
I want to get back to your TikTok stuff.
Yeah,
we kind of went into it, and then we had a wonderful little sidebar. But so the process, you educate yourself on the videos. How do you know that you've got a good one? Like, can you feel intrinsically when, oh, this one's gonna make the resignation of the associate health minister? That's gonna be nothing. Like, can you?
Okay, so how deep into the weeds do you want to get on this?
Let's get all the way in.
Okay, so the way that it works is it depends on a bunch of different factors. So your follower count matters way less than you think. Like way less. And the way that the For You page has changed a lot. The biggest thing that like makes me feel like a video is going to do well is having a hook in the first couple of seconds. So I get asked about my pictured here gags all the time, like why I do them. If I get a good pictured here video or joke, the views on that video are way higher. Because if they don't swipe in the first couple of seconds, they'll probably stick around and hear you out, right? At least for some portion of the video. The other big thing to consider is verticals. So like I'm sorted into like basically the Canadian politics vertical, the Alberta vertical, the Saskatchewan vertical. And so it puts you into different categories. and it'll perform based on previous performance in that category in a lot of cases. And so like if your videos are doing well in the Alberta vertical, you'll get pushed in the Alberta vertical. If you make a video in a different vertical, like if I were to suddenly make a straight up gaming video on my main channel, that video would have to start from absolute zero in that vertical because I've got nothing there. And so it's all about knowing where you fit. And so like one that'll do really well, it's going to depend on the different verticals. Like if I'm making a comedy video, is it less than 15 seconds? Is the joke easy to understand? If it's a politics one, it's do I have some interesting insight to offer? If I'm doing a reply video, I have to be really careful because there's very easy low-hanging fruit of views from just dunking on people. And it's like TikTok drama drives views like crazy. And so people like, and it happens from every side. Like getting into conflict will drive views like crazy, and I avoid it like crazy. So it depends on the different vertical how the views are going to do, but there's different sort of indicators for different verticals, if that makes sense. But the biggest thing, honestly, the biggest thing that sets a good video apart from a bad video is pacing. The faster it is, the better it is. Like to a point, like you don't want to be an auctioneer, but the faster it is, the crisper the pacing is, the better it's going to be.
Okay. I wonder if that's why I see some videos where they actually speed up the video and the speaking noticeably.
That's exactly what it is. They'll play their voice at like 1.5 speed.
Yeah. Just
in order to keep the pacing up.
I just wanted to take an extra long pregnant pause there for fun.
And it's funny because in real life, especially like, so I'm obviously like very aware that I'm on camera, and so I'm trying to speak with a bit of pace here. But in my real life, I'm a very methodical speaker to the point where like I have to like be like, sorry, can I just finish my thought? Because I like very much pace myself out, weigh what I speak. And so that's why a lot of my videos are so heavily edited, is because I am a very methodical, very careful speaker. And so, yeah, but if you keep the pace up, people stick around. People want the information. They just want it in a way that doesn't like, I bore super easily. And so I make content that doesn't bore me because people bore easily. And so if it doesn't bore me, it probably won't bore them.
I so feel your speaking pacing piece. I tend to, when I'm not doing the show or something like that, I tend to speak very methodically. I take my pauses. I make sure I'm using the right words. And I live in a household where there's more than one person who has ADHD. And it is a challenge. There have been negotiations in regards to how I'll speak, and then maybe you'll wait 2 seconds or so before you jump in, because otherwise I'm going to feel like I've been interrupted and I get my feelings hurt. So here's a question that I wanted to ask you, because I mean you directly stated the TikTok drama, and it seems like every social media platform has its share of teams and drama and all of that sort of thing. And a lot of people, like we're seeing a lot of people on Twitter right now, for example, they're saying, oh, it's such a toxic platform, I can't handle it anymore. And that's always seemed like a bit of a, which one isn't? Which social media platform isn't the toxic one? If you could make a list, I think it will have nothing on it.
I think you're right to some degree. And I think every platform has massive issues with toxicity for sure. And I think that's sort of the big danger. And I think that's part of what's driving, like TikTok is, its growth is slowing a lot. And a big part of why is because it became a miserable place to be for a little while there. And so I don't know if you've noticed, there's been a big shift in the algorithm in the last little while. And so they've been pushing like way more long form content, way less replies, way less stitches, just because it got so toxic. And I think Twitter, as much as it's going badly, I think is trying to do the same thing, where they're trying to push more standalone content and less reply content. But the way that they're doing that is through verification. So it's like pushing all that toxic stuff to the front. So Is it any more toxic than any other one? Maybe not. Do you have to cultivate your followers and your watch list a lot more? Oh yeah, big time.
So that's one of the pieces that I wanted to talk to you about as well, because one of the things that I think we're seeing a lot of, especially as the intensity of the political situation continues to go, is this whole piece where because it's so intense, because there's so much, so always, it's really, really easy to get for people to get burnt out. And I've seen a few content creators who I thought were doing absolutely amazing, amazing work, not only in regards to being wildly entertaining, but also extremely informative. And they just couldn't deal with the fire hose of turd. So what are some do you have any recommendations that you will give people who are trying to do any kind of online advocacy or education to not get burned out?
That's a really good question. Like, the thing is with online content generation, I think every creator, I'm sure you've probably done this. I think everybody who starts to create content that they're trying to do it regularly or trying to do it seriously will realize very quickly it's a hungry beast, right? It will take as much content as you will give it, and it will always want more, right? Audiences are insatiable, and that's like a good thing. They'll always consume what you create, and that's fantastic. But you have to be able to draw boundaries within yourself and to say, like, no, I need to like put this down. And so like my fiance and I have a rule, like real life always takes priority. Number one, like if we have like a family engagement, I'm not streaming that day. I'm not recording that day. I'm just going to go. Things like that. And then there's also like an element of, I frequently have to remind myself or ask myself, do I care what this person thinks? Like, do I care what user blah, 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 blah thinks? Like, they're probably not even a person in a lot of cases. So like, do I care? Probably not. And one of the ways that I deal with it, that I'd recommend to anybody, is play. I deal with it in very playful ways. So like a lot of times that's things like silly filters. That's things like silly dances. That's things like using memes. That's things like, just like, that's where the political comedy comes in. That's how I deal with it, is by keeping it laughable, by focusing on the ridiculousness of it. And I think that helps me to keep my head screwed on straight, at least to some degree, depending on the day.
Yeah, the humor piece, I think, I mean, we use puppets, and that's how we do a lot of our humor. I find sketches also work very well. But yeah, is there anything else that you would say to people who are looking to get into the advocacy piece? Like, a lot of people are seeing, we are seeing, and there's actually, regrettably, evidence that backs this statement up. The polarization that we're seeing in society, at least in Alberta for sure, is getting more extreme. It's getting more divisive. It's certainly, we certainly don't have any political leaders that are trying to put the brakes on it because it serves their own interests. The stakes just keep getting higher and higher and higher. So there's a lot of people who are seeing like, hey, I remember in the 90s when people were losing their shit over drag issues and trans issues, and I kind of thought we'd put that one to bed, but here we are again. So there's a lot of people who are starting to get involved. Any advice that you would offer those people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that I would highlight. The first and always the most important is have something to say, right? Like, there are some people who create content just to create content, and that's not what you want to be doing. Like, you don't want to just be adding to noise. You want to have something to say that you feel is of worth. And that doesn't have to be about every topic. Like, I get asked to comment on lots of topics that I don't, because I don't feel like I have something to offer on, but I focus on what I do feel like I have to offer. So that's one big thing. The other big thing is just make bushels of content. Like, the first things you make are going to suck. And there's this curse that happens to a very specific set of people who I think are the ones who would do really well at content creation, and I feel like I fit in this category to some degree, is you start without skill, but you start with taste. You know what a good piece of content is, but you don't have the skill to make it. And so that first window can be incredibly frustrating because you know it sucks. Like, you know what you're making isn't good, but you're learning, you're cutting your teeth, and that's got to be okay. You've got to make your peace with that, and you've got to be willing to make probably 100 bad things before you make something that you're like, feel good about this. The other big thing that I would highlight, okay, so two more big things. One is, if you are not already in the streaming space, you need to be in the streaming space. That is where all the growth is right now. And so if you are somebody who is setting out in the world of content creation, you need to have a live element to your content. And that feeds directly into the last thing, which is have a community and foster a sense of community. So maybe that's something like a Twitter page or Twitter account that has a follower base, or maybe that's something like a Discord server. But have a way for your community to stay in touch with you, a way for your community to gather, a way for your community to organize. That's specifically for content creation. As far as just political organization, join up with people who are already doing the work. Don't reinvent the wheel. Find people who are already doing the work, support them, work with them. Research carefully, but find people who are already doing the work.
Okay. You talked a bit about boundaries. What about, one of the phrases that is kicked around a lot is self-care. How important is that for playing in the political content creation space, do you think?
Oh, I think it's super important. I think it's finding, like, everything that you do that deals with a negative thing is just going to chip away at you a little bit, and you need to find ways to build yourself back up. And so, like, for me, it is shameless self-promotion, streaming video games. That's like a super playful thing that I do. It has nothing to do with the politics. It is strictly for fun. And so that is like a way that I just do self-care. It is a playful thing. It is a way that I use this platform that I have to fulfill a childhood dream, which is getting paid to play video games. And another big thing for me is just human connection and focusing on real life connection and prioritizing real life. Online content creation is cool, but it's just online content creation. Like, I teach a class full of young people each day who could not be less concerned about the fact that I have a TikTok following, right? They just care about the fact that I give them math homework. And so that helps too. Like, that all helps me to keep my feet on the ground, and it helps to keep me in the real world. And the closer you can stay connected to the real world, I think the easier it is to manage the mental health component of that. Plus yoga, just do yoga.
There you go. What I gotta ask, because I'm curious, what are the video games that like? Do you have a niche? Because I know, like, my kids, as I get into my peak middle age commentary here, I know that my kids have certain YouTubers and streamers that they follow, where it's like that balloons game where the monkeys throw the darts at balloons. I know from firsthand, there are hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of videos about this throw darts at balloons with monkeys games. And I'm a big fan of monkeys, but that's a lot of monkeys. What are the games that you stream?
So I'm what most folks would call a variety streamer. I stream a little bit of everything. So right now I'm streaming a game called Subnautica, which is like a base building, exploring sort of thing. I stream lots of Mario stuff. I stream like the next game I'm going to stream is Half-Life 2. It's just kind of whatever I feel like playing at that time, and I have pretty diverse interests.
Are you going to go see the new Mario movie?
Yes,
action.
It looks. Here's the thing: if the voice cast, or specifically Chris Pratt's voice for Mario, seemed better in the trailers, I'd be much more interested. But he literally just sounds like Chris Pratt doing a Rocket Raccoon impression, and I can't unhear it. Hey, I'm Mario. Cool. And you're like, okay, why?
See, to me, it's got that sort of Angry Birds feel, like, oh, they made a movie. And I'm old enough to remember the first Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh,
And
that movie was amazing with John Leguizamo and oh my gosh.
amazing. It did stand out.
Fun fact, that went to #1 on Amazon yesterday.
No.
Yeah, it's back, baby.
Okay, well, I'll go really into the weeds here. The TV show.
Okay, so that is actually on, I think, Prime. It's on one of them. So, like, that show. Okay, do you know who was the Mario in that?
Wasn't he like a pro wrestler?
Yeah, it was Captain Lou Albano.
Yeah.
Just the weirdest thing. And like, why did Elvira show up every 3 weeks on a kids show?
They had some weird guests on that show.
Elvira was on that show a lot. And as a kid, even I remember being like, why is this happening? Like, who is this person?
One of my kids had an extended hospital stay when he was very young, and we watched the entire box set twice. So
ooh. Did you skip any of the talk show stuff and go straight to the cartoon? Because the cartoon was where the money was at.
The cartoons was where the money was at, but no, we watched the whole thing.
Ooh, well done. That's dedication.
You know, you do things for your kids. Steve, anything else you want people to hear? Anything else you want people to know? Like open mic, free floor. What do you got?
Oh man, support public education. It is the backbone of a functioning society. It is the most important thing to move our country, our world, everything forward. And don't be afraid to envision something beyond what you experienced in school. Move education forward and get a better curriculum.
I would love to envision anything other than what I experienced in school.
Exactly. It's so weird how people are so dedicated to keeping schools the same, even though they hated it.
I'd never understood. Is that the hat? Is that a Red for Ed hat that you got, or is it communism?
It was not intended as a Red for Ed hat, but I'm going to steer into it and say absolutely, it's a Red for Ed hat.
There you go. Okay. not the communism.
Exactly.
Okay.
I just like the red.
If people want to follow your, like, I have a feeling that everybody who's in our audience is probably already following you on TikTok. But if find you on TikTok, if people want to find you on the Twitter machine, if they want to find, I don't know, do you do the gram?
Not really. It's mostly Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch, and in all three places, it's Steve_Boots.
There we go. Awesome. Steve, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. This was a very fun, lighthearted conversation about some less than lighthearted topics. So that's super cool. And I just want to say, I very rarely go on the TikTok machine. It feels like, you know, the Sarlacc?
Yes.
Where it just
but before the updates, when it was just a hole with teeth, or after when it had like the beak and all the awful things?
Just the hole with teeth, just when it was dragging them over a period of 10,000 years. That's what very often TikTok feels to me. So props to you for being able to sit in the pit of the Sarlacc.
I try to be a little brighter corner on it. Thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
As always, if you appreciate the kind of content that we're trying to produce here at The Breakdown, we would love it if you swung by our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab and signed up for a small monthly sponsorship of the work that we're trying to do here. It is because of the support that we receive from our Patreon sponsors that we're able to continually up our game, and it is tremendously appreciated. So I want to throw a big thank you out to them, and you can go ahead and visit that website and join and support us as well, because we need all the help we can get. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for listening and being part of these important conversations. And we will see you next time on The Breakdown.